Is there something about human nature that makes us more inclined towards negative information rather than positive? Why do we do that?
Yes, yes. Why do we watch horror movies, and why do we watch disaster movies? You know, movies like Final Destination. You know, just a few weeks before taking a plane. So it's not my area of expertise, but Khrisha, yes, we almost seek on an automatic level catastrophic type information, and we need to resist this
Mhm.
compulsion we all seem to have, because in this moment in time we need to look at the data that in my mind matters. And Krisha, you and I know it's the data that many senior people in the field have tried over the last 6 to 12 months, have tried to highlight that is the data that matters. Infection to fatality, hospitalizations, the social demographic predictors. That's what we need to look at. Even if we would want to turn on the TV and check one more time how many positives there are
Yeah.
today, in what region they are in, is there a new, the gamma
Mhm.
variant, you know. So I think we need to resist that if we want to not become locked in the COVID anxiety syndrome.
Yeah.
We need to stay with the data and avoid the checking and the attention to threat.
Mhm. As you mentioned, to avoid getting locked into COVID anxiety syndrome, what are the risks, Professor Spada, if you do get locked into this for an extended period of time? I know we just said let's not think about worst case scenarios, but I think that is something that I'd love to know more about. And also, if we can then talk about how do you get out of it? How do we help people break out of COVID anxiety syndrome?
So we know from the research that this entity, this construct of COVID-19 anxiety syndrome is separate, as I said, from other constructs. Health anxiety, COVID-19 fear, which is different from the syndrome. It's the response, almost the automatic response to threat. What we don't know yet is how it could end up fueling, for example, health anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder or agoraphobia in the months or years to come. We don't know that. However, there are some indications in our research, our more recent research, that it might end up fueling health anxiety. So this would make sense from a sort of theoretical point of view, whereby we start with what is a pandemic-related phenomenon, which then gradually expands and generalizes into other forms of anxiety. And by the way, other forms of anxiety could include social anxiety. Why? Because if we've been locked into our mind, we've been avoiding, we've been worrying about other people's symptoms, checking if they're ill, that will also bring to a disconnect with other people and might make returning with being with others quite difficult to do. And we're seeing that already. Our social muscle has not been exercised for a long time. There is evidence showing that the more we are isolated, the more depressed we become. This starts to affect our immune responses. It starts to affect our sort of pathways linked to motivation, etc. There are many different effects. So maybe the COVID-19, continuing from what I've just said, the COVID-19 anxiety syndrome might also bring eventually to the development of depressive states, as we're seeing, hence the increase in mental health problems. So for some, the pandemic may have exacerbated an underlying mental health condition. For others, the pandemic may have brought about the COVID-19 anxiety syndrome, which will result in the development of mental health problems.
Right.
And one thing to make clear, the history of mental health problems is not an independent predictor of the COVID-19 anxiety syndrome. So when people say, you've got the COVID-19 anxiety syndrome because there's a history of mental health, no.
Okay.
So it seems to be that for quite a number of people, it's a standalone new phenomenon.